All right, folks, the Fed has made their decision. The Oracle descended from his great lofty tower in Washington to enlighten us poors on the great wisdom of the Federal Reserve Board. And what Chair Powell had to share with us is that the Wizards of Smart at the Politburo elected not to hike interest rates in the month of September. I guess they didn't meet in August. I feel like they did. I guess that July was just the weeks are just going by so quickly now, I guess. As we all remember, I'm sure, the Fed hiked rates in July to it's a range 5.25 to 5.5. So let's just say 5.5, or no, let's say 5.25. Normally I go with the lower end. That's what I say. It's because that's the floor. The lowest that they will let the Fed funds rate get is 5.25. And if I remember, also in June they did another pause on the rate hike. So the Fed seems to have gone into a pattern now of pausing of hiking every other month. And Powell said that he did not expect this to be. He expected there to be one more hike this year at the very least. So I guess it would have been after May, I think, was the last one of the successive monthly hikes. Then they went to every other month because June they didn't hike, July they did, August they didn't, and now September. Oh no, this is 2 months. Okay, so they went 1 month no hike, then a hike. Now they've gone 2 months no hike. So perhaps next month there will be a hike in October, and then maybe and then none in November and December. Things are not looking fantastic. As we know from history, when the Fed hikes rates this much, in fact, the Fed has hiked rates more since March of 2022 than they have in decades. It usually doesn't end well for the economy because that usually is going to end up popping your bubble. Now, it's not good to have a bubble to begin with. We should all recognize this. We should be adult enough to understand that bubbles can't last forever. We should expect a pretty violent deflation of the bubble, dare I say it. Of course, we're not really going to have price deflation. Prices keep going up and up and up. Even if inflation tapers off, prices overall are not going to go back to where they were. Prices are going to stay high, and they're going to keep getting higher. But don't worry, they tell us, because we're going to have a soft landing. Remember that? Remember the soft landing? Oh, sure, we're going to have a recession, but it'll barely be a recession. It'll be a blip on the radar. You won't even notice it. And then inflation will be back down, and then we can go back to 0% interest rates, and we can go back to partying. But now we have Powell saying that the soft landing is no longer the base case. Oh no. That means that the Fed is forecasting that we're going to have a hard landing. I tell you, folks, I'm just heartbroken. Tell you what, if I were old Joseph Robinette Biden and I had a pulse, but then again, if I did, I wouldn't be Joseph Robinette Biden now, would I? Anyway, if I were Joe Biden, I would be very upset about this. I would be very concerned about what Powell's doing. In fact, I would probably already be dropping stories in the press about how Powell is a Trump appointee, and he's no good, and he's going to destroy our economy. Because you want to get in front of the story before it happens. You want to start planting the seeds of doubt before the recession so that you can blame it on somebody else. And to a certain extent, I think I'd even sympathize with Biden, although he would be saying the wrong thing. He would say just like what Trump said back when he was president, oh my gosh, the Fed raising rates, this is terrible. It's all their fault if we have any economic problems. It is all the Fed's fault if we have economic problems, but it's not from the Fed hiking rates. Presidents always want rates to be at zero. They want interest rates to be as low as possible. Presidents probably would like negative interest rates if they could get them. Now remember, the Fed's goal here is to increase unemployment because the Fed operates off of something called the Phillips curve, which says that if inflation goes up, that means that you have too many people who have jobs. And you need people to be unemployed, you need them to be on the streets, and you need them to be begging for handouts, welfare, charity, and the like, in order for inflation to go down. That is the cure for inflation, is homelessness. And so these are the two things that the Fed is looking at. And the Fed is, I guess, thinking what they're seeing, what they're divining when they read the tea leaves and the wishbones. They're seeing that inflation, I guess, is going to start going up, but they're not quite sure if it's going to go up enough, or unemployment, in order to bring inflation down. And so they're saying, yeah, we're still going to have to hike again this year. And I don't think Powell said at all what they're going to do in 2024. Although, wait, did he say that would be the last hike, though? No, he might have said that, if I remember correctly. But these things can always change. The Fed can always backtrack, and that's what always happens when things start to get real. The Fed changes their mind. So as for right now, I don't think anything too exciting is happening. I do feel compelled to speak on Fed days. I always do an update on that. But still, nothing's going on. We've been moving in the same direction now since March of 2022. And we're kind of here. I'm surprised that they're still talking about rate hikes, honestly. I thought that the Fed would have definitely stopped at 5% if they ever got there. But hey, here we are. We're over 5%, and apparently we're going to go up to 5.5%. We'll see if things don't blow up before the 2024 election. Gosh, it's been going on for so long. And honestly, at this point, as long as all this has gone on, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. None of this makes sense to me. I mean, to me, it all feels like uncharted waters. I'm an observer. I don't really have wisdom to offer here because, and I think this is the case with most people. I mean, I've stopped listening to most economic commentators because, I'm not the only person who's been humiliated by the length of this business cycle. The last real, major recession, I mean, we've had dips, but the dips were buying opportunities. If buying the dip was a winning strategy, I do not count that as a recession. It was not a real recession. It wasn't a real crash. We never got the real crash. We haven't had a big crash since 2008. And that's 15 years ago. 15 years of a bubble. And so, once you make it 15 years, you feel like, okay, it could be 20, 25, 30 years. Of course, my gut always says, no, it couldn't possibly be that long, but we've made it this long. So I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm sitting here looking at things as they come in. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.